All right. Hello. How are you doing? I am Adeoluwa, and this is Musings of a Sanguine Christian Woman. And in this episode, I'm going to be sharing my thoughts and my experiences so far as the book Spare by Prince Harry goes. Now, I've always wanted to read that book. The moment I heard it was out, I just thought, it's part of my bucket list. And thankfully, I belonged to, a book club where unanimously, the highest vote, because we vote for books that we're going to read every month. So that was the book that had the highest vote. So that was what we're reading this September. Which is just an interesting coincidence, being that it's his birthday and then it's very close to the anniversary of Princess Diana's death and all, So I just realized that first and foremost, what really made me want to talk about this is that I realized that when people have made up their minds about what to think or feel about you, it doesn't matter how many evidences or how many facts are pulled out, they will still maintain that that doesn't mean, they will still, because for them, for some people, their opinion is God. Their opinion is, they worship their opinion. They hallow their opinion, their mindset, what they believe about things. They're not willing to change it. So they will stubbornly hold on to it because for them it is who they are, it's their pride, it's their personality and all of that. Like, it means a lot to them for them to not change their mind. And I'm just grateful to God that I have this kind of upbringing that taught me, and that has taught me to be how will I put it now? That has taught me to honor the truth anywhere I see it, even if I don't like it, even if I have my own thoughts about it, but the truth should always be exalted above any other thing. Next to God, the truth should be the truth, right? And no matter how I feel about it, no matter how I feel about the person involved, but we notice that sometimes people, when they like somebody, they would turn the truth upside down just to, create a way of escape for the person. And if they do not like somebody, no matter how much truth that comes out about that person, they will, as if it's a religion, they will keep saying, well, it is a religion for people like that. They will keep saying that, no, this person is lying, this person is not saying the truth. And when the evidences now become overwhelming, they'll be like, what is the need to bring that all out? I remember, hearing people say, why would you even want to talk about your family in public? And I'm thinking, the family is in public. You people are reading about it. Like, if you care so much about the family not being in public, why do you know this much about them? You know this much about them because you were listening, because you were paying attention, because you were following the story. I mean, I know how not to follow a story, right? I look for not interested, or I don't like this post, or I don't like this ad. Whenever I see a headline that I don't want to get involved in, I delete it. I have it removed straight away. If I have to block the notifications on a particular app or a particular website, that is exactly what I'm going to do. Like, if that is what they want to be showing me, what I don't want to see, then I'll just block the entire website or the entire app itself. That is how diligent I am when I don't want to see things, or when I don't want to, when I don't want to expose myself, my mind and my psyche to a particular subject, whatever that subject might be, So when people who are following a story, you know things about these people because it was on the media, but all of a sudden when they are talking, you don't want to know. Like, is it just, and Prince Harry mentioned that in Spear, because I'm still at the first chapter. No, there are like 3 parts to it. So I'm still at part 1. I've not even finished part 1, and we've already moved to part 2, and we're supposed to conclude part 3 this Saturday, I believe. We're supposed to conclude part 3 this Saturday, and I've not even started part 2. I just got really busy and all, but I guess I'm still trying to like digest the part 1 of it, which has, many chapters in it, but those chapters are not long either, so it gives you the sense of progress and all. One thing I noticed about Spear so far in part 1 is that, considering that's what I've read, so maybe I'm going to do Spear part 1, Spear part 2, part 3, like it's written there, is that as sad as the story is, the humor of the situation was brought to bear. So I didn't even have time to, cry or weep or get too angry, because Prince Harry just found a way to see the humor of it. And I think that is somebody that, I now began to understand why I liked him as a person. Like, I liked his personality even before hearing him speak. I just looked at him and I thought, I like this man, I like his personality, even though I don't know him. It sometimes it's just a sense, there's if you're attuned to your spirit, and you function more as a spiritual person, and you function more in your soul, you are able to tell who people are. You're able to discern who people are even before you have had evidence, right, of who they are. And so that was what it was for me. The same thing with Meghan as well. I don't really know her beyond watching her on Suits, but I sort of, shall we say, trusted Harry's judgment on the wife he picked, because as it were, he was already in under scrutiny a lot. So for him to pick one, to choose to marry one, an American, two, I don't want to start mentioning what some people will call Meghan's faults, but for him to marry Meghan for, like she has like 3 major things that is so anti-British empire or dynasty, as the case may be. Like she's American. Anybody who is deeply American, who knows the history of America, will understand that the British, they don't like Americans, and the feeling is mutual, sort of, like, because Britain tried to colonize America at some point and it became a war, so they're still very salty about, Britain is salty about losing the war, and America is salty that they even attempted to subjugate them, like what the heck? Like, what did we leave Europe for? We left Europe because of you people, and you are following us here, kind of thing. Like, geez, just stay on that side of the pond. Hello. And then I remember there was a time when Britain was going through a recession, which I'm not surprised they would. When you always depend on siphoning, looking for places to conquer and siphon in the name of colonization, of course, you get to a point where all you have is your title, but not a penny to your name. They got to that point where they didn't have anything. The nobles, the dukes, the earls, all the titled nobles, they had these gigantic estates. But no money to maintain them, and they were at risk of losing them. And so, of course, they didn't think of what can we do within Britain to generate funds, to maintain these edifices, to maintain this heritage and all of that. No. You know what they thought? Let's look for rich women to marry. I can't believe it. And it actually became a thing. It became a thing where The same America they tried to colonize the other time, they went there trying to, no, not trying, they went there with the sole aim of picking rich heiresses, girls who are from wealthy families, because obviously most Europeans who traveled to America, who moved to America, they went there to make a fortune for themselves, right? And they did make a fortune for themselves, right? They made a name for themselves. They became they became as well known in America as these nobles have become in Britain. But you know how it is, they look down on them. But if you know anything about Britain, they might look down on you, but if you have something they need, they will milk you dry, even as they are looking down on you. They obviously didn't mind getting married to somebody that they did not give a damn about. They did not have a problem getting married to women that they hated. Like, they hated them because they have the money that they don't have. They hated them because they were American and everything that represents, but they still married them anyway. It became a thing. It was like, oh wow, why aren't you going to America to go and pick a bride? And unfortunately, in other parts of the world, people have this kind of star eyes about men who are from nobility. They believe that because they are from quote and unquote nobility, they are actually really noble. But well, it is not noble to marry a woman for her money. Let's even start from there. But they didn't see it from that angle. It took a while for the rich men of America to realize that, hold on. So you guys are down on your luck right in Britain, and now you're picking off our daughters for their money, like for the money we worked hard for. Like, what the freaking heck? You understand what I'm saying? So you had a situation where even men were pushed out of the country to find a rich. It was even a thing they did even among themselves, that they would marry a rich woman from somewhere just so that they can use her money or her inheritance or her dowry, as the case may be, to fund both their lifestyle and their family, as the case may be. I'm always suspicious about cultures that collect money from a woman. Like, what the heck? Like, it's always faulty. It's always faulty, I tell you. There's always a loophole that somebody would use to take advantage of the situation. People would just, a woman would not be married. A woman who has money or whose father has money will always wonder why this man is marrying her. You understand? Like, I guess the best way to do is separate yourself from your father's money and see what happens. Like, if he still wants to marry you after that, well, I suppose you probably have found somebody. But if not, well, next please, I guess. So there was that. So, like, the relationship between Britain and America is a very strained and estranged one, right? They don't like each other. So for Prince Harry to marry from that, well, of course they're going to pretend like they've moved on, and they did pretend for a while that they've moved on. Then all of a sudden they found reasons to express their disdain over what happened. This, of course, they will say, oh, but we welcomed her. That was just an alibi. There was no welcoming. The welcome was not genuine. You understand? I believe she was set up in many ways to look really bad. Talking about manufacturing stories and all of that. But the fact that he picked a woman from there, like, I wouldn't even say picked. They met each other. He liked her enough. There are times when a man can like a woman and he knows that his family would not really accept, or that his people will not accept. And so, even though he loves her a lot, he would let her go. He will not marry her. He will marry somebody that is accepted by the community. But I think when I was reading, we were having a discussion on the book club about, Prince Harry and all of that. They kept talking about how traumatized he was. I'm like, yeah, he was traumatized, but he was also matured. He also did not do things. Like, he wasn't that traumatized that he would do anything to please the press or, his known and, the powers that be in Britain. He was going to marry who he liked and who he really wanted to be with, And the fact that he actually did it was a sign of a man that was a man's man, you understand? Like, he chose somebody that he really wanted, because it doesn't make sense. I had to give you a brief history of what America is with Britain, so you understand that this whole thing has been going on long before Harry even was born, right? So it's an issue of transferred aggression. Let's just put it that way. Then transferred aggression in the sense that, how dare her have the affection? How dare an American have an affection of their prince? Because he's willing to protect her. That even makes them angrier, right? I mean, they wanted to, take out their anger, their century-old anger on America out of her. That is one. Two, she's a divorcee. Oh God. That even makes it... They have a thing against divorcees, right? They feel like she's not pure enough to be part of the royal family. So that is another strike against Meghan, right? The third strike is she's an entertainer. My goodness. Like, they would have no problem if Harry was seeing her as his girlfriend or as his mistress. Oh, absolutely, they will have no problem with that. Jeez. I mean, in their history, both in their history in British nobility, they had entertainers as mistresses, they had divorcees as mistresses, they had people from other nationalities, other kingdoms, as the case may be, as mistresses, but never as wives. So for them, how dare her insinuate this? Of course, is not Harry's fault. Of course, it's always the woman's fault. Like, how dare she insinuate herself into the royal family and blah, blah, blah. It was fine when she was a girlfriend, I mean, it was fine in quote. But then when he said he was going to marry her, that was a problem. And the fourth strike, if not the third, the fourth strike, her mother is black. Good God, her mother is black. I'm sorry, even in Africa, there is always that disdain. If there have been a people that because they were impoverished or you took them by force, they were either your servants or they were slaves in your history, I noticed that disdain goes from generation to generation, sometimes from both sides. One side might want to show that they show who is now boss, or who can be boss, try to outsmart somebody who comes from a tribe or from a kingdom that used to enslave them. And then, of course, there is that person who is the conqueror, who likes to see the other person as still a slave. And we might like to deceive ourselves. So some people will like to deceive themselves into thinking that slavery is over. Well, it isn't, number one. Number two, I mean, it's just become new and improved in such a way that it's not obvious anymore. It's not obvious anymore. They've now developed new ways of still having the benefits of slavery without going through the route they took before. But the end result is still the same as what they got way back then. They just found a manipulative way of going about the same business now. So they still have that way of looking down at, because see, at the end of the day, no matter what, if your family used to own slaves, unless you have a good heart, unless you are a godly person and your core is very kind and loving, you would always look down on anybody that looks like those who used to be your slave, or comes from a person who was born of somebody who looks like a slave. And so, for them, never mind that it doesn't matter for them if shall we say, let me just leave that one for a while. I think they just had an issue with the fact that somebody who they would rather have as a mistress is now a princess. Like they see it as a personal slap on their face, but they played it well and bided their time until they started the real attack, and then they were like, oh, it's her fault, it's not our fault kind of situation that they kept coming up with. And I'm glad that they're fighting back in their own unique way, which is one way to do that is write your own story. You understand? Those who will believe, those who will not would not. I learned that the hard way, I might say, on the book club, because I had people say things like they saw what was going on, but instead of addressing what has been said, all they said was, well, if what he said could be believed, that was bad, but he's complaining too much. And I'm thinking, well, where were you when everybody was complaining about them? Where were you? You went on a holiday? You were there when people were complaining about them consistently, like almost every week. It was either somebody said something they were not supposed to say, treated the staff a certain way, looked at another member of the royal family another way, did not tilt the hat they were wearing to the left, instead they tilted it to the right. They wore gloves instead of not wearing it, or the color of the gloves was not what they should have worn, or they were copying somebody. It was always something when they were the mundane, crazy things that were being complained about them on the papers. These people didn't see that because they don't want to. They don't want to. And he mentioned that in his book. He said it's like people just took pleasure in seeing him as a joke, like his life is something to ha about. And I think people have gotten so used to that they don't want to see. They refuse to see that this is a person. And so they accuse him of complaining too much. The fact that you're being asked if you're human for even laughing at another human or wanting to read and all things negative about someone, and you don't want them to speak. Like, how do you even think that somebody should choose to be your jester? Somebody to a rich person or a known person to laugh about, to read gossip about. The fact that I think it's they're feeling guilty and they don't want to admit that they were wrong, so they go, he complains too much. Are you kidding? If they're in his shoes, would they keep quiet? And I noticed that when this whole thing started, which began with Princess Meghan saying, now some people might say she's not a princess, but I didn't ask you, sorry. But I didn't ask you. As far as I'm concerned, if you're married to a prince, you're a princess. End of story. Just like if you're married to a king, you're now a queen consort, if you know what I'm saying. So as I was saying, right. So, where was I? Yeah, I got a bit carried away with that one. So, it just goes to show, like, when she came out, I remember now, when she came out, and she didn't really come out. That's the thing. She was asked, how are you? And she said she's not fine. That's what she said. And you would expect sympathy. There was a lot of sympathy, of course, because I think some people were genuinely concerned how she's coping and all of that. When she said she was not fine, some people's fears were realized that, oh my God, what is going on, right? And of course, the ones who wanted to bully her to death or bully her for the rest of her life. People are just crazy like that. They took it the wrong way and started talking about what could possibly be your problem, that sort of thing, right? That was their first coming out. And I think honesty is always the best policy, right? She was honest about how she felt, and she came out to be honest about how she really felt. And I would expect that should be respected, because a lot of people have said a lot of things about how they felt about her. And, the naysayers followed the trend, but somehow they didn't like it that they might be wrong. And so they decided to stick to their whatever, and it's saddening that even in the book club I'm in, just about almost everybody was saying, oh, the book was boring, oh, he's always complaining, we don't even know how true it is. And I'm like, are you kidding? Like, can you not be, is it so difficult to be neutral? I'm not even asking you to be a fan of them, but is it so difficult? Like, I thought that was what being an adult, how that looks like. Like, being an adult, for me, I think it's you learning to put your emotions aside and be neutral, especially when you already have an opinion about something that you don't have the facts to back up. You don't have the facts to back them up, like hard fact, hardcore evidence from unbiased sources. I didn't say biased sources, like the sources are unbiased. If you don't have facts and you're just going based on what you feel, and what you feel is negative towards a person, the least I expect a decent person to be is to be neutral. But no, I didn't see that. I didn't see that at all. They were like, oh, they overplayed this public thing. And I'm like, dude, ladies and gentlemen, this whole thing was overplayed from the very beginning. How come y'all didn't see that? I remember when she came out and said, she didn't come out to say, someone asked her a question and she answered honestly. Thank God. I respect honesty everywhere I see it, right? I mean, it was a question. A lot of us lie when we are asked, how are we? We say we are fine, and we damn well ain't fine. Not everybody, sometimes a person could get tired of lying. Do you understand? So I guess she's like, I'm not fine. And when she said that, a lot of Hollywood people in the entertainment industry, they actually came out to show their support by actually admitting that, they had issues with the media as well, So, like, in their way of saying, you are not alone in this. Like, all of us go through this, but we just didn't say anything because we understand that people don't care. The fact that people don't even think that is an indictment against them, that they have a thing against the truth, so much so that they would rather believe lies and horrible things about other people, and they don't see it as a call to do better. It shows how low some people's humanity have sunken. Like, some people don't even have humanity anymore. They're just mean, wicked people walking about looking for whom to disparage. What a devilish way to live, when you're not even looking for someone to praise or to honor, but you're looking for someone to disparage. And when you're told this person you're disparaging is actually, there is another side to this story, but you maintain that what you know or what you think you know is the accurate one, then you're very abusive and you're masochist, in my opinion. And I remember, which is why I'm not going to participate in the talk because I wound up almost going against everybody. I wound up having to defend what I thought was pretty obvious. Like if everybody was neutral, like I said, I wouldn't have a problem. Like we're looking at the book objectively. But since we all went into our feelings on how we felt about the whole situation, I went into my feelings as well. And then the coordinator of the group, of the founder and the coordinator of the book club was like, let's separate let's not make this personal. And I'm like, because I felt like she was talking to me because I was the last person that commented. When the other person commented, it was not personal then. But after I commented, that was when they talk about let's not make this personal, I'm like, okay, well, since I can't make it personal because apparently my personal is for Harry, not against Harry, then I might not even involve myself in the conversation at all. So I'm just not gonna, I'm gonna read this at my own spare time and not read to meet up with a group of people who have decided that they were going to dislike Harry and they were not going to be, shall we say, fair about it. And I don't want to get into and besides, it's not my platform, right? It's not my platform. What I would just say is, please remain neutral. If you know you can't remain neutral, then maybe you should not participate or something. But everybody stated their opinion. But when I got personal, and for me it's personal, it is personal, but I just didn't see the need to argue with somebody on their own platform. I'm somebody who likes to, I respect establishments, no matter how I feel about what they might be doing generally or what they're doing specifically, it's a nice group generally, but this time around, I'll just excuse myself until next month when we do have another book to talk about, but it just gave me a clue as to why people feel the way they feel about Harry and his family. And it's another revelation that people have lost, or they just choose not to be empathic. It's just a matter of walking in their shoes. Like, what if I'm the one who went through this? How would I respond to it? But I doubt they've walked mentally in their shoes. Maybe the only part of their shoes they walked in is the royal shoes, the famous, the fame, the popularity. They didn't walk through the everything else that comes with it, especially for this particular person. They've just blocked their mind. Like, once you are born into privilege, we have every right to show our dislike to you, even if it's not based on anything close to the truth. It's unfortunate, it's sad, but mostly it's annoying. And I remember what I said. I said, when they said, somebody said something, I said, I would remind you of this when you become very famous. And that was when the comment of, let's not make this personal. I didn't wish them, I said, when you become famous, very famous, I'll remind you of this statement. And that's my way of saying, you will go through this situation, or you will. Even if fame is not part of your destiny, because of this mindset you have against somebody that you have refused to walk in their shoes to even know how they feel. It's at this point, it doesn't even matter whether the person is telling the truth or not. Just walk in those shoes. Like, assuming this story is true and I am the one going through it, how will I feel? Right? But no, they refuse to do that. And I'm like, even if the thing about it is that when you refuse to understand what people are going through, I don't know how that happens, but it does happen. Those people find themselves in that very same situation. And half the time, and more than half the time, they cannot handle the heat. They cannot. They cave in. They collapse. So it just goes to show that people always expect of others what they cannot and they don't wish, or do they wish to do. First, some of these people, they don't want to be famous because they are afraid, not because they don't like fame, but because they are afraid that the very things they've done to famous people, they're going to experience it. And sorry, their fear is going to come to pass. They will become famous, and then they will go through the same thing. And then they too will be in the situation where they have to defend themselves, but then no one will listen. What goes around always comes around. I was raised to always walk in people's shoes before coming to any conclusion. And so I'm not going to deviate from that, no matter what the world is saying. So that is my thoughts so far. Or like my experience reading Spare. Now, my thought on the first part 1 of Spare, like I said, it was a sad story. A lot of issues came up, like a lot of issues were highlighted and discussed, but there was always a humorous side of it. I laughed more than I cried. I didn't even cry. Before I could get to the point where I would cry, I've read something there that made me just laugh. Like the humor in it was just so something else. Like it's a very easy read. I won't say very easy. If you're not a deep person, you might find it very hard to read, because you're reading someone's thoughts here of what really happened to them, not fiction, something that happened to them and how they felt about it and their perspective about it. And I think it's also a shout out to them for donating the proceeds of that book to charity. So for those who said the book, they were just profiting out of the family, I'm like, they're not profiting out of the family, if you can call that a family. But then that's his family, so yeah. But instead he donated the proceeds. How come people didn't mention that part? They wouldn't mention that part. Why? Because it does not suit the narrative that they want to keep having. So they omit important details. And if you don't read, that's why it's always important not to believe everything you hear. You understand? About somebody, especially when it's not them that said it. Someone said something about someone that is negative and you just believe it like that. Now I read the book, I'm like, how come nobody that, like the fact that you are even unobjective and you are not even being neutral is what makes it, what makes it look like you're lying. For those who don't have anything good to say about Harry and his family and his wife. Yeah. That being said, it's like I said, it's an amazing read, and I think that you should go and read it. Go and read it if you haven't read it, and if you have, well, I don't know whether you should share your thoughts with me, because right now I'm kind of raw about any thoughts being shared that is not positive or neutral. So I'll just end this particular episode by saying, guard your hearts with all diligence, for out of it flows the issues of life. They that know their God, they shall be strong and they shall do exploits. And I hope to God that Prince Harry finds God, the true living God, and connects with God on a very deep level and have a personal relationship with God, because he needs God more than ever. He needs God. We all do, really. It's just sometimes we just feel that we need to deal with this ourselves and all. I believe that Harry, like every one of us, really, if we're honest, he needs God more than he needs therapy. Because I think he's had therapy, but there's a limit to therapy. Only God is limitless. Only everything else has limits. Everything has an end to it. And sometimes before you get satisfied, the end might come. Before you get all you need from something, the end of it might come. And that is where the limit is, right there. you know. And like late Chasby would say, if each one can teach one, then each one can reach one, and teach one rather. If each one can reach one, then each one can teach one. We'll have a better world, you know, whether you know it or not, whether you like it or not. You're your brother's keeper, you're his sister's keeper, so show love just because. And God has not given you the spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. Stay healthy. Seek the truth at all times, and no matter where you see it, honor honesty, and develop yourself to the point where you can recognize a lie and you can tell the difference between a lie and the truth. I'm still on that journey, but I can tell you that so far it has been rewarding. Shalom.